Hello, shall we study Bible together? Now Jesus, right now in his third year in the ministry, and somewhere around September, maybe October, it is 6 months before he went to Jerusalem and being crucified there or killed. The 6 months before that, he went to the high mountains and he transfigures there. And then after he went to the high mountains, he came down from the mountains and went to the town called Caesarea Philippi. And after that, he coming down to the Capernaum. Now, let's read the Bible from that part, Matthew chapter 17, verse 24. We're going to read from Matthew chapter 17, verse 24. This is what happens after Jesus came back to the Capernaum. Let me read this. After they arrived in Capernaum, the collector of the temple tax came to Peter and said, "Your teacher pays the double drachma tax, doesn't he?" He said, "Yes." When Peter came into the house, Jesus spoke to him first. "What do you think, Simon? From whom do earthly kings collect tolls or taxes? From their sons or from foreigners?" Now Jesus came down to the Capernaum after high mountains, and more likely it's Mount Hermon. Let me show you the map. You see, Jesus was here at the Mount Hermon, and then that's where he had a transfiguration. And then he came down on Caesarea Philippi, and that's where we learned last week that he cast the evil spirit out from the boy. And then he came down to the Capernaum. And that's where usually that's his headquarters of his ministry, and that's where the Peter's house is. Now he's in the Capernaum. And then after they came back to the Capernaum, there was a tax collector who was waiting for them, apparently. And this tax collector questioned Peter first and say, "Hey, does Jesus pay tax? And this tax is for temple tax." And so Jesus now asks Peter, "What do you think about does the kings, whoever collect the tax, the authorities upon the kings and the government, they have the authority to collect the tax." So the questions are the kings and the government people. They are very high in official, and they have a power to collect the tax. But are they collect the tax from their own kids? Obviously, I think the way that Jesus arguing is this temple tax, that Jesus is the Son of God, so he's a God's kid, God's children, so that he don't have he's exempt to pay the tax. However, apparently, the story goes in different directions. Now let's read from after this in verse 26. After he said, "From foreigners," Jesus said to him, "Then the sons are free. But so that we don't offend them, go to the lake and throw out a hook. Take the first fish that comes up, and when you open its mouth, you will find 4 drachma coins. Take that and give it to them for me and you." What's surprising is Jesus said, after Peter said, "No, those kings, they do not collect the tax from their kids, but from the adults or other people." Then Jesus said, and that means he is the Son of God, or he is a children. So child of God, so that he's exempt, he's not obligated to pay tax. However, Jesus said that he does not want to offend or make be a stumble block to those people. That he asked Peter to go fishing and catch the fish, and the first fish he catch, and in the mouth there should be a coin. Now that must be a very surprising statement for the Peter, because Peter, he's a professional fisherman. So for him is catch the fish, and from the fish mouth he found a coin. That's just unthinkable things that happens, and but then that apparently seems happens. And also, people who are writing this this record is Matthew. Now, Matthew, his previous profession before he followed Jesus was tax collector. So, for Matthew, this was a very memorable incident, because Matthew thought those tax collectors who came to Jesus' house, the Peter's house, was kind of that was exactly the same job that the Matthew was doing not long time ago. So for Matthew that was a memorable, but for Peter it was the most surprising. Is the fish had coins in the mouth. The questions are what this teaches us. I think what it is this teaches us that if God need money, He can provide. He can bring money from somewhere beyond our comprehensions. After I came back to Japan and became a minister, I started to realize that the more you follow Jesus, actually, if we put the God's righteous and kingdom first, everything will be provided. That word is exactly truth, because after I become minister, sometimes when we need money, in somewhere beyond our comprehensions, the money does be provided for our church. This year, our budget was a little bit into the red line, so we receive offering less than what we spend. So we're a little bit concerned, but then for some reason, only a month ago or so, someone, and I don't know who that person is, but someone's donate about $1,000 to our church, and that balanced out our budget. And so I was quite surprised, but God does always like that. He can bring money if He wants to. So that's probably what it is. But either way, the point is the king on this world, they have authority, but they don't collect the money from their children. But then, after that, in Matthew chapter 18, verse 1, the story continued like this. At that time, the disciple came to Jesus saying, "Who is the greatest in the kingdom of heaven?" Now, let me stop here. I wonder why disciple asked that question after Jesus' issue with paying the tax. Probably because Jesus mentioning about there's the authority in this world, the kings who has authority, who's the most important, the greatest, and the kings and those people are greatest in this world. So I think that, but even the Jesus have to pay tax to king in this world. But I think that the disciple wanted to know in the God's kingdom, that probably they expect that Jesus will say that Jesus is one, the most important, the greatest. Jesus is one, is a king. So he might say that Jesus will collect the tax from others instead. Or maybe they will just wonder if there's a tax in the kingdom of heaven. Or maybe that since Jesus is a king, they probably could be like a prime minister or something. So they wanted to find out what would happen, who had the most powerful authority, who is the greatest in the kingdom of heaven. Probably that was a kind of a line, in line with what they experienced by the Jesus paying the tax to the kings in that time. So maybe that's why they asked that question. So they probably expected Jesus said that Jesus is the one that will be king in the kingdom of heaven. However, Jesus didn't reply that way. Let me continue in verse 2. Let me read. He called the child and had him stand among them and said, "I tell you the truth, unless you turn around and become like little children, you will never enter the kingdom of heaven. Whoever then humble himself like this little child is the greatest in the kingdom of heaven." What's surprising is Jesus brought a child, a little one, and he made the little one stood among the disciples. And then Jesus pointed out, you have to be like this little kid. And then his point was that you have to humble yourself, and and then accept Jesus as his deity, or believe in Jesus. Humble yourself, and then you can enter in the kingdom of heaven. Whoever enter the kingdom of heaven, they are actually smart and the greatest, and especially the people who are humble themselves, and which means the people who humble, people who think that, oh, I'm not really good or not worthy, but then they pray to God, would you please mercy on me, Lord? People who ever repent. Now I just wonder why Jesus did that too. Now, what is a really distinction between the child and adults? Then more I thought about, is a child more holier than an adult? I think the child thinks something bad also, just like adults, and I think they are more. They are also very smart too. The children is not dumb. So maybe they are equally sinful as adults. So that's probably not meant. Does that mean the child is innocent? Well, I think that some kids does bad things too. So I was wondering, that's what Jesus meant. But then one thing I'm sure is children's difference between children and adults is that children depend on parents. Children's they really cannot live by themselves without adults' guidance or protection. And if you tell a little kid to go out from the house, that's one of the worst things for happen to that boy or kid. And also, if you see that sometimes some children they lost at the place like amusement park. Amusement park should be a most funnest, most wonderful place for children, but when they cannot find their parent, they start to cry because they are so insecure without parents. So the great difference between the adults and child is a child is dependent on adults. I think Jesus wanted to say we should be like child. We should really depend on God. God is our Father, our parents, and just humble ourselves and depend on God. And with that, we can enter in the kingdom of heaven by asking God, please, save me. And then the people can enter. And then those people who humble themselves are the greatest in the kingdom of heaven. That's what Jesus said. That Jesus basically said the children who are really believers, who believe in God, who really depend on God, that they are the greatest and they are children of God. Then from the verse 5 afterward, Jesus pointed out that what will happen to the people, how this world will treat these children. And let's read from verse 5. And whoever welcomes a child like this in my name welcomes me. But if anyone causes one of these little ones who believes in me to sin, it would be better for him to have a huge millstone hung around his neck and to be drowned in the open sea. Woe to the world because of stumbling blocks. It is necessary that stumbling blocks come, but woe to the person through whom they come. Wow, that's interesting. Now, from verse 5 indicating that what will happen to the people who mistreat these children. First, he said that the people who accept the God's children, which means Christian or believer, people who accept them because of their Christian, because of their associate with Jesus, they will be rewarded. And that's actually, they're doing good things the same as they're doing to Jesus. These children really identified as Christ himself. But then the people who mistreat these children, especially people who put the stumbling block to these children. Basically, what this Bible tells us is that person is better for that person to die dead than or being being killed than going to the hell. Now that the drowning is apparently the one of the way for execution, and basically I think the Bible tells us is if you being executed, if you're not there, you cannot make little kids to be stumble, do you? So basically, the people who are put the stumbling block to the little people, which means a Christian. This means that people who believe, people who become like a child, believing Christ in a very simple-mindedly, accepting God's love, and they become children of God. And whoever put the stumbling block on the children of God, it's better for them to not be existed. That's what Jesus is saying. Now the word stumbling, this word in Greek word is actually somebody put a little rock so that people will stumble or fall down, and that's what it meant. So that's what the basically interesting. This word is appear 24 times in the Bible besides this part, and every other part is used as the people stumble on Jesus, which means this stumbling block basically meant that whoever hinder people from believing Jesus, that they should be better for that person to not even exist or die or killed or executed than go to hell. Now then the Bible indicate in verse 8, it's go like this: if your hand or your foot causes you to sin, cut it off and throw it away. It is better for you to enter life crippled or lame than to have 2 hands or 2 feet and be thrown into eternal fire. And if your eye causes you to sin, tear it out and throw it away. It is better for you to enter into life with 1 eye than to have 2 eyes and be thrown into fiery hell. Now, all of a sudden, the focus went to the person itself. Now, here is hands and the feet and eyes. If that causes to be a stumble block. Now, the hands and the feet, those are actually part of the physical body. Now, as you have to understand that when we become a Christian, and we're made from the soul and spirit and the flesh. The soul and spirit belong to God, but our flesh, this flesh, it still came from. We still have our flesh, and this flesh is originally came from Adam and Eve and being cursed. So even being Christian, we are still inside of the corrupt physical body, and this flesh can cause us to commit the sin. Even you're Christian, you could commit the sin. You could, with your hand, you can be violent, and you can really commit the domestic violence by your hand. Even you're Christian, you can do some sinful act, because this flesh that we have is not really belong to us anymore. It's actually this flesh should be go back to the soil. And we had to get rid of this flesh eventually, but this flesh is actually still belong to cursed world. So I think Jesus saying is first he said whoever stumble the children of God, those persons shouldn't be existed, and it's better for that person to be executed or killed. And then he pointed out if your flesh calls you to sin, it's better for you to cut off the part of the flesh, your body. And it's better for entire you to go into the hell. And so basically that's what it is. So whoever mistreat children of God, they will be punished. They will be judged and punished by God. And God is really carefully watching them. Then after that, verse 10 indicate that how important from God, God's view about the believers. Let me read verse 10 and chapter 18. See that you do not disdain one of these little ones, for I tell you that their angels in heaven always see the face of my Father in heaven. Now, this is clearly indicate that God is really watching over us, and He uses angels. He uses angels to kind of watching us. Some people from this verse derive the idea of the guardian angel. Maybe, maybe not. We don't know. It's kind of difficult to really point it out that every individual Christian has individual guardian angels. But at least one thing's for sure is God uses angel to watch over us, and God is actually watching what's going on. This is almost like this, that if you're parents and your children go to school, and you kind of wanted to know what's happening at the school, because every time he went to or she went to school, and when they come back, you see some bruises on arms and legs. So you wonder what's happening. So you bought a drone, drone, and then and a drone go beep, and then this drone with a camera, and your kids go to school. Your kids doesn't even realize there's a drone following him or she. And then you found that through the drone, this drone is like angels, and you are like a parents, like a God so God watching, and through the angels, and then sure enough, the bully start to be mean to your own kid. Now, if this happens, if you are the parents, how are you going to react to it? If I'm that position, if I'm the parents of that kid, I probably think about two things. One is I wanted my kids to be grown up, like fight against, be strong and fight against this bully. I really want my kids to stand alone and not gonna be back down with this evil guy, bully guy. I want him to be right. And I think that's what the God wants us to be like that. At the same time, I get very upset about this mean kid. And I probably go to his parents or go to him himself. Why did you do that to my son? I probably, probably God has the same feeling. God loves everybody, yes. But then if someone's really causing the stumbling blocks to the children of God, the God is actually going to punish them, and then God is actually watching over every one of the Christians. And then the story goes in verse 12 to 14. Let me continue to read this. What do you think? If someone owns 100 sheep, and one of them goes astray, will he not leave the 99 on the mountains and go look for the one that went astray? And if he found it, I tell the truth, he will rejoice more over it than over the 99 that did not go astray. In the same way, your Father in heaven is not willing that one of these little ones be lost. Now, the Bible indicates the children of God as sheep. And the shepherd is God. And if there's one of the sheep out of the 100 lost or went astray, the shepherd had a great concern, and then when he found the astray sheep, God has a great rejoice, very happy. This all indicating that God's really taking care of us. God is watching over us. God as our shepherd, that He really concerned and He really loves us. Now the sheep, as far as I know, is very, very, how I say that, not really wise animals. Sheep is a very, first of all, sheep cannot run much. I mean, sheep cannot run fast. Sheep just, and then sheep also is white and very easy to spot the sheep. If I'm a wolf, why God made such an easy lunch? Really, you know, it's a white, and also the sheep love to live in open field. And you know, sheep is not hiding anywhere and it cannot run, so it's very, very easy to catch the sheep and devour it. And then also sheep eye is not good, so sheep cannot see much. Why God create the creature like that? But then the God used the sheep to indicate that is us Christian and a believer. And the sheep, just like children, really have to depend on the shepherd to protect them. And the one thing, however, the sheep is good at is hearing. Sheep can distinguish who is their master, their owner, or and who is not. So that God used this illustration to teach us, we Christians, like children, we depend on parents, God, and like a sheep, we really depend on our shepherd, who is our God. Now, today's story is that Jesus first indicate that in this world, the king had authority, and in this world, the king collected tax, and so Jesus, however, is the children. And the children, we don't really belong to this world, so we don't have any obligation. We don't obligate to this world anymore. We belong to kingdom of heaven. We are citizens of kingdom of heaven. Our obligation is in the kingdom of the heaven, not in this world. However, to avoid the offend people, to avoid to become a stumbling block, to avoid from people from believing God, we should be obedient to this world ruler, even though we are not really obligated to. But so that is the first thing. But then the issues are, who is the greatest in this world? In this world, the greatest people is a king, or you know, the authority in the government. But in the kingdom of heaven, instead of those kings and authority, Jesus indicated the kingdom of heaven is these children of God. From God's viewpoint, we as Christians are most important beings. We are the most valuable, and for us and for our sake, God Himself became a man and died on the cross. And He really saved us by sparing His life, and went through the pains for pain. So, for God, the most important person is us, and the Christians, the believers, the followers of Jesus Christ. We're children of God, and we're the most important from God's viewpoint. Whoever become like a children and humble themselves and depend on God and be like, oh Lord, please save me. I'm not that good. I'm sinful, but please save me. That person, the people who become humble person, that person's, from God's viewpoint, is a very, very valuable and most greatest from the God's viewpoint. But then at the same time, that God is watching carefully how the people in this world will treat, this world going to treat that these children of God, and whoever treat children of God, welcome children of God, they will also be welcomed by God. But then whoever makes the offend the children of God, God will rightly judge. And when God going to judge that person, it will be very serious and severe. And then whoever, if your flesh, your physical body going to offend it, it's better for you to really discipline your physical body, because otherwise that person, being judged by whatever that person did. And then God also indicating that how God taking care of the children of God is that God is actually watching over every moment, 24 hours. God uses angel to watching over us, and it's almost like a shepherd watching over us, over sheep, and he's make sure that we're not going to go into astray. Now, maybe I should explain like this way too. God, like our parents, and we are God's children. But the condition we're in is there's a bad, evil adults is actually kidnap us from the God's house, and now these children of God now lives in the evil man's house, and that evil man's house is this world. And this evil man and this Satan's and he's also a liar, and he's keep telling God's children about lying. And first lie he said is, you don't have a parents, there's no God, you don't have any parents. And then next thing he said, your parents don't love you, the God doesn't love you. And then there are also the Satan telling the children that you gotta be greatest in his house. That you have to be greatest in this world. And then it is the Satan's prohibit us to talk about death. Because when we talk about death in this world, people say, "Shh, don't talk about death. We don't want to hear about people dying or death. That's really unlucky. Don't talk about it." Why this world don't want to talk about death? Because if we really start thinking about we all die, that now that we're going to reveal that we may possibly open our eyes and reveal that all the work we do in this world in vain. Satan wanted to keep us to be successful in this Satan's house, Satan's world, and going to waste our entire energy and our entire time to be a greatest in this world. But then as soon as we think about death, everything you accumulated, every money, even one penny that you have in your pocket, you cannot take it to the heaven. All going to perish. All your positions, all your greatness in this world become completely perish or disappear at the time you die. So in this world, the Satan tried us not talk about death, and because it's going to reveal the Satan's lie. And then he's actually telling us, that you have to be greatest in this world. Now the parents, God watching this, and what God did was this. God felt so bad about this. God wanted to claim his own children. God is very upset that his children was kidnapped from his house. So God talked to negotiate basically with this evil man and say, "Hey, I will be a child. I will be coming to you, and you can do anything you like to me, but let my children be free." And so that God become hostage himself, and God become a man, and then become a children, and then the Satan indeed killed God on the cross. And because of that, because of Jesus' actions, the door being opened, we become free. God loves us so much that he let us open so that Satan don't have any power over us. If we wanted to, we can escape. We can go back to our parents, real parents, the God's house. However, questions are: does children do children love his real God, real parents? Do children go back to God? And the door's open. There's no lock anymore. But Satan's also clever. So what the Satan does is Satan put many other doors. It looks like that the door unlocked, and Satan say, "Oh, Satan tried to not to see that the real freedom door that God opened it up for us, but Satan tried to cover it up." So whoever tried to open another door, another religions, and as soon as that person opened the door, there is a wall and said, "You have to work hard." And another door he opens, and you have to work hard. And many other religions, such as Jehovah's Witness, for example, it looks like us, the Christian, but it's a fake. And if you open the door in the Jehovah's Witness, the first thing you will see is you have to work hard to gain your salvation. And it's not the Jehovah's Witness alone. Any other religion besides Christianity is like that. You open the door, and the Buddhism, you say the Buddhism say you have to work hard to be a mighty persons. And some Buddhism door you open, you have to really pray to the statue Buddha to be saved, and you have to say hundreds or millions times. You have to enchanting the Buddhism sutra, and otherwise you cannot be saved. And even the saving part in Buddhism is vague. There's like a wall that you cannot see. It's really what's behind the wall, and that is the Buddhism. And then think about the statue, the Buddha. That the Buddhist people say they have a great Buddha statue that you have to worship, but Buddha statue is actually in the time of the fire. The statue had to be saved by human. How humans should bow down his head to the statue where the statue have to be saved by human? That doesn't make sense. But besides Christianity, all other religions that Satan disguised, you have to work hard to gain the salvation. However, that Christianity is the only one, and very uniquely the only one. When you open, you realize that there's no work involved. All you have to do is depend on God, like your children. You have to be like children, and you have to trust and depend on God's and His grace, and simply accept God's love. And by doing that, you are free, and you go to God's kingdom. Today's lesson is this: do you want to be God's children, or you want to remain as Satan's children? And question that whether you're going to open the door and be set free. If you're not, I encourage you to do so, and it doesn't cost you any penny. There's no work involved for you to be saved, because simply it is a totally free gift that all you have to do is be like a child and accept God's love and come back to the God's house and be a God's children. Shall we pray? Lord, thank you for today's your message, and through the Jesus teaching, that we as a believer, we are children of God, and you love us so much. Oh Lord, please tell this fact to the others, so that they too will open the door, because the salvation is absolutely open and free, and it doesn't cost any, and no work involved. Please let the people to understand this. Lord, thank you for today's message. Just pray. Amen. Okay, take care. Have a nice day. Bye-bye.